Hello everyone, I'm Nathan Bell.
I'm Paddy Quinn.
And welcome to the Student Perspectives podcast, where we interview your favourite lecturers and get perspectives on their pathways and their careers and try to relate it to you so you can understand all the options you have when you finish your degree.
Today we are joined by a brilliant mind at the intersection of academia, research and entrepreneurship. From overcoming immense challenges to self-educating his way into a career spanning machine learning, financial mathematics and global policy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Alexander Victor.
Thank you so much.
Dramatic
Welcome.
clapping.
Sorry, we don't have a live audience to clap.
No, we have to do it ourselves.
It's okay, no problem.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm grand.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you kind of do here at DBS?
So at the moment, I serve as a lecturer with several departments. Now, I joined the DBS with, I think that was last year, September, actually. So I joined as a research advisor. So you have the supervisions we do for master's students when they graduate. And at that time, when I joined, I was like, okay, could I join as a lecturer as well? Because I had a passion to teach, yeah? So I taught other places before, and I felt, okay, maybe I should talk to the school and see if I could start teaching. And lucky enough, the opportunity was there. And I joined in January 2024. That was last year.
Yep.
Yeah, so since then, I've taught a couple of modules. I've been a supervisor to several master's students who have successfully graduated. And I think recently I began to teach other extra modules in different departments like business, finance sometimes, economics. I teach computing. I also teach cybersecurity sometimes, like this semester and stuff. And I think somehow I'm beginning to drift into the administrative arm of the school because today I was made the module leader of a certain large module, the largest module in DBS that we teach. So that kind of like the things I've been doing in DBS since I joined, and it's been quite interesting.
Well, congratulations. I also remember you were the lecturer of the year last year.
Yeah, I was. And that was, I was shocked myself actually, because that was like 3 months after I joined DBS. And I showed up at the party because I felt bored at home. And it was like 9 p.m. and I'm like, okay, I need to have fun today. Where is happening? So I checked my emails and I saw the whole award thing you guys were doing. So I said, maybe there'll be an after party. Let me just go. So I showed up, I think, about 9 p.m., 9-ish. And lucky enough, the awards for that category was towards the end of the entire stuff. So I saw when you guys were doing your stuff and I stood behind. I didn't have a seat to sit down. A few minutes later, they said and I was shocked to see my name on the. Both my student, everybody was like, okay, you just got here the other day, how come? So that was quite impressive. And it really encouraged me since then because that kind of like made me understand the little things I do really matter in the school. And I gave it, since then, all my best. And to surprise you to note that recently I won another award again.
Really?
In DBS, yeah. So.
You're packing the awards in.
Yeah, I'm trying my best.
What was your other award in?
Yeah, I think so. They said they have this local DBS award you do every year. And I think I didn't even know about it actually. My faculty manager kind of like put in my name for the award, like she said months ago. And the result came out, I think, a few weeks ago, and they said I was the one who clinched it. I don't even know the detail yet. I guess I might find out later.
You don't even know what you're winning.
I have no idea. I just know I get the emails, and that's it. So it's been interesting for me.
Well, should we get into it then?
Yeah.
Should we start at the start of your career?
Okay.
Where would you think would be the start of your career? Sort of.
I think my career started long enough. I mean, so what happened was I'd always wanted to be an engineer, right? Because I didn't know why. I just felt like my dad was an engineer. I thought he was an engineer.
From what age?
From around before I became a teenager.
Okay.
You didn't grow up here then?
No, I didn't grow up in Ireland. I grew up in Nigeria.
Okay.
I just came to Ireland I think 3 years ago or so.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in Kenya for 6 years before coming to Ireland. So I was in Nigeria before then, and I saw him going about his activities as a young boy, and I felt, this guy's an engineer. I would like to be like this when I grow up. So when I was going to the university, that was several years ago, I thought he did engineering, I could apply for engineering. So I applied for engineering, but before then, there's a background story as to before I went to the university. So when I got to the university, I wasn't given engineering, I was given mathematics, and I didn't like it. So I felt, okay, what do I do? And I was told, if you don't perform very well in your department, you'll be allowed to switch to another department. So I said, okay. And unfortunately, I heard that towards the end of the semester, my results were already good. So what they didn't tell me was, if you perform too well in your department, you will not be allowed to go to other departments because, that's like you are the main person in the department. No one lets you to leave. So towards that period, I was like, okay, it's time to move from mathematics to engineering. And then I was denied the opportunity to move because they felt like, okay, you have the best result in the department. You can't leave and go and join another department. So that was how I started studying mathematics. And I did mathematics for like almost all my career. For instance, my master's degrees are in mathematics, PhD in mathematics and stuff like that. But what that did for me, it kind of like put me in a space whereby I could do anything. I could learn anything I want to learn because it kind of like opened my brain to try new things. I remember in my second year in university, I actually came up with a mathematical theorem. And that was, for me, it was a genius idea, and to everyone who read the whole thing I wrote, they were like, how could you do this in your second year in campus? So that showed that mathematics opened my brain into endless possibilities. I was able to try anything that I could try, okay? I could teach anything I want to teach except, of course, medicine and surgery, which I wouldn't want to play people's life. But then the point is that changed the whole trajectory of my career. I kind of like started doing a lot of things from there. I went further from there to putting hands into computing and IT, where I did several programs like Oracle, web development and stuff to the advanced level. And I moved into entrepreneurship to start the business of IT and eventually went back to school to pursue my master's and PhD.
I think it's really interesting because, for example, someone like me, when we finish high school, you're made to pick a degree in college and you don't really know what you want to do sometimes. Yeah. And I usually tend to, or my reason for picking business was because it was the subject I did the best in.
Okay.
And for you, it was obviously you wanted to follow a little bit in your father's footsteps. So it's quite interesting to see that that's kind of the way you went.
That's it.
Did you go straight into university then after you were 18, or did you take a few gap years? Or
No, I went straight into university. So what happens in my country, when you finish secondary school, which is high school over here, you take an exams, and if you pass these exams, you go into the university. But if you fail, you have to wait a year and write the exams over again. So I passed the exams and I got into the university immediately, like the next year. All right. And that was it since then.
So you moved from Nigeria to Nairobi in Kenya?
Yeah, I moved in 2017. After I went there I was doing a PhD in Nigeria. So I got another scholarship to do a PhD in Nairobi. So I felt like I could do both at the same time. So
were you nervous moving away from home?
I wasn't really nervous. I think I've always wanted to try new things, explore the world and stuff. So when I got the opportunity, I took it immediately. I didn't even waste it.
I think most of the lecturers we've interviewed say moving away from home is a massive thing for your development as a person because you learn to do your own cleaning, your own cooking, you learn to take care of yourself properly. Yeah. Did you find that yourself, or were you always quite self-reliant?
Yeah, I've always been, because as some personal stuff, I lost my parents very early in my childhood. So that kind of pushed me to become an adult much earlier than I was supposed to. So that kind of made me try all the adult stuff. You have to take care of your siblings. You have to know how to do this. You have to know how to cook, how to protect everyone and stuff. So when it was time for me to leave the house, it was I'm set. I'm good to go.
I think that's a really important point because I think a lot of students, they have a lot probably that go on in the background that we don't see.
Yeah, that's true. A lot.
How did you manage that type of situation and also focus on your academics and balance that type of thing?
Yeah, so one thing I'd always believed in is I don't let the situations around me kind of get the better part of me. I make them push me to do what maybe people around me think I can't do. All right. So for me, I've gone through several challenges. All right. Several, both personal, emotional, family, finances until where I am right now. So I would say these things fuel the drive in me to become whatever I've become and whatever I'm becoming. All right. Every day I wake up and I am my own competition. All right. If I achieve this today, I feel like, okay, there's more that could be done. So I wake up and I push it. So no matter the challenges I go through, I don't let them weigh me down. I keep on trying. All right. So it's never that easy. Sometimes you try and you break down. Sometimes you need someone to tell you doing good enough, but you don't always come. All right. And self acknowledgement of all the things you've done is important. So for me, I feel people should always believe in themselves. Tell themselves you've achieved a lot, no matter how small. Celebrate it. Celebrate little success, and always use your challenges to fuel your future dreams and stuff.
And I think that mentality is a wonderful thing, but I think a lot of people understand that you don't get born with that. You
No,
kind
you
of get
don't.
through a lot of tribulations and
yeah.
a lot of hardship, and that's kind of what builds that callous in your brain to
That's
think that
correct.
way.
That's correct.
So if someone does go through something at this age, they shouldn't think it's the end of the world, but
No,
it will
it's
make them
not.
a much stronger person.
That's true.
And at one point it will come to the stage you're at where you're so hardened and your mind can effectively use it properly.
That's correct. That's correct.
How do you manage then to find balance between working so hard and also having so many personal constraints and responsibilities?
Yeah, so I think for me, I work so hard. I mean, I really work so hard. I realized recently I work so hard I barely have time for any other thing but work. So, but one thing I do, like I said earlier, I don't let the things that happen around me. So I try to find solutions for every problem as fast as possible. Because I feel like if you have a problem and you sit there and you're looking at the problem for far too long, they take control of all the good things you would have been exploring, right? So for me, I just make sure if I hear something that goes wrong, or if I see something go wrong, I look for a solution as fast as possible and put it away or fix it and move it aside. Because I don't want to sit back there and keep looking when there are opportunities out there. There are things I could be doing. There are maybe progress I could be making. There are deadlines I could meet and stuff like that. So I try to make sure I solve those problems as fast as possible. Or sometimes if there are things I can't solve, sometimes there are things you just can't do anything about them. I mean, if you lose a loved one, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to try to heal as fast as possible, right? So again, sometimes those emotional moments, you just have to try to go through them quickly as fast as possible, accept the truth, the reality, it has happened, and try to build yourself up back and keep moving. And again, to be honest, some of us don't have the luxury of failing. That's the truth. Some people in this world do not have the luxury of feeling pains, letting emotions or challenges put them down. If you have people depending on you, if you have like a large number of maybe family, friends, community looking up to you to succeed, to actually get them to believe that success is achievable or to get what their daily bread, for instance, you don't have a chance for letting anything weigh you down.
Yeah.
You have to keep fighting as it comes. Okay, so that's what has been helping for me. Yeah.
Was it ever difficult then moving away, being as you were the main caretaker of your family then?
I think it became much easier because I got more opportunities after I moved away. For instance, I was in Nigeria for several years and I didn't get the opportunities I got after I moved to Kenya, for instance. Okay, when I got my second PhD, I went to Nigeria. I was thinking I'll be welcomed at the airports with drums and stuff, right? I remember at some point I even went to university to beg them to teach for free because I just wanted to teach. I just wanted to pass on what I have. But then when I moved to Kenya, I got more opportunities in Kenya, right? So I had more opportunities, and then when I got a chance to come to Ireland, it was way much bigger for me, right? It gave me more opportunity to help more people. So what I do most times is I go spend time with them, I come back, but then I make sure the opportunities are here, and I send, So it's easier for me now to be able to take care of more people than I would have taken if I had sat back in Nigeria to nurse everyone in the same space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's always a sacrificial lamb that has to go out there and try. So.
And you told us behind the scenes that your career started with financial setbacks and you had a whole...
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yeah, so early in my career, when I was still in high school, I had always had this financial challenges to actually, sometimes you need to pay school fees, you need to buy textbooks, for instance, you need to buy uniforms and stuff. And that was a big of a challenge for me growing up, considering my background and then my kind of family stuff. So at some point, I felt like, okay, I keep getting chased away from school every time because I couldn't afford the fees. And at one point, I decided to drop out of school, And dropping out of school was one of the biggest decisions I ever made that really helped me today because it gave me, it gave me the motivation to believe in myself, to believe I could do everything that I want to do today that I'm doing right now myself. Because when I dropped from school, I was preparing for a professional exam that would, when you're finishing high school, you have to write this, you have to finish with an exam.
Like a final exam.
Thank you, the final exam. And I wasn't ready. I didn't have the money to even pay for the exam. I didn't have the money to pay for the fees to be in school. I couldn't have passed the exam due to the stress of you have to go home, stuff like that. So one thing I did was I left school and I started studying on my own. All right. So like I said, what I told you in the story, like when people are heading to school, conventional school, I pick my bag, I pick any textbook I have, maybe physics textbook, mathematics, Nelcon and Parker. Back in the days, you have further mathematics textbooks and stuff. So I go sit down somewhere and I start teaching myself. So what I do is I follow the examples. I learn from the examples. Why was it doing this and this? When I'm done with the example, I pick a question that looks like the example, and I follow the same step. And I confirm maybe from the back the answer. And if I'm right, I celebrate. So one drive I had then was, if I come to this, there's a place I used to go to every day. It's an abandoned school, for instance. Other people come there to read. When I get there and I see you there, you have to leave before me. No matter how long you stay, I'm going to stay here till you go. So that was the first time I started pushing myself too hard. I'm like, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it too. If he can stay here till 7 p.m. at night, I'm going to stay here. As long as it's safe for me to get home, no one will leave here before. I'm not living here before anyone. So, but in that period, I learned much faster than I learned, to be honest, when I was in school. I learned better. I knew a lot of stuff. And that kind of like really helped me. And since then, my master's and my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, even my PhD, I'm just self-tutored. Just give me the book, I'll be fine. See you in the exams.
I think conventional schooling doesn't really work for everybody. I think you can learn a lot outside of class. Like, I'd be a big believer in education, but also believing that you need to try things outside of class, and it's really relevant. I know you took on a lot of projects.
Yeah.
And that's probably also a skill you learn from being by yourself and having that drive to do things by yourself.
Sure.
Do you think those projects are really important for students to take on?
Yeah, yeah, there are. There are lots of projects, and most of the projects I've worked on have been either in research or probably developing maybe tech solutions that solve problems. So yeah, so students can take on some of these projects depending on what career path they find themselves. And even in my classrooms, when I teach, I encourage students to take on projects. Sometimes I pair my students in groups and give them projects and say, see, this is for the whole semester. I'm not assessing you. I'm not saying you must submit it, but I'm saying you should complete it because you're going to learn from here to build your own project. In this team, you have project managers. You have people who understand how to develop the technology. You have those who know how to organize timelines and everything. So they get to learn from these groups and stuff. So the projects I have worked on in the past and the one I'm still working on is a project that people can actually benefit from in good ways. Yeah.
I think when students look at a project, they kind of see a mountain.
Yeah.
How would you encourage students to just to start or to like not look at things as so grand, but kind of take it maybe step by step?
Yeah.
What would be your advice?
My advice to them is never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. When you try most times to start a project, you're already looking at the end goal and you're trying to picture a perfect outcome. Don't do that. Just start. Sometimes you might not even understand the end, how it looks like. But the baby steps you take, the little updates you make on your project, as small as it goes. When you come back later, it forms, they say little drops of water make a mighty ocean. Yeah, so it takes one step at a time. Keep making progress. The little progress you make one day will amount to something. Most of the very iconic lecturers in DBS today didn't just wake up one day and become that smart or intelligent. No, they all started from somewhere. They made baby steps until they got to where they are. So I would encourage students to focus on the little progress they make, celebrate the little success they get. Never try to picture a perfect ending. Just keep trying. Wherever you stop, somebody else will continue. Okay, that's how projects are.
I also think it's maybe important to understand that failure is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's
and
not.
Biggest teacher sometimes. And
for instance, I tell my students, don't worry. I mean, until recently, we started making adjustments to making sure students don't write exams. When I teach, I say, don't think about the exams. Think about learning. Forget about the exams. You will pass. As long as you're in my class, you will pass. Right? So just focus on learning. When you take that conversation out, people relax, and your learning is different. But when people think about, if I'm not careful, I'm going to fail. I mean, it's okay to fail. I mean, there are a lot of great people we all have failed. I have failed before, right? So most people who I know that have actually moved mountains in terms of do great things in their careers, they have all failed at one point. So failure is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing because it gives you opportunity to learn better in that environment.
I think the best lessons usually hoard the most.
Yeah, they do.
There's no athlete in the world, there's no one who's ever accomplished anything who did it on their first try.
Yeah, no, they can't.
So I think it's really important that people understand that, because you're a really impressive person. So when people hear you speak, they'll go, "Oh well, I can't do that." But truth be told, they can do that if they just start really small.
Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of people in your situation also, like facing financial hardship and family hardships as well, would have probably given up and wouldn't necessarily have found the motivation to learn on your own.
Yeah.
So where do you find that motivation, and what pushes you to work so hard and keep persevering?
I think my story, because I might not be able to give the graphic detail of my story right here on this podcast, but the point is, if I look at where I came from, and the probability of me succeeding was next to zero, was a bit next to zero, right? And I realized that every time I make a small effort or a major effort, I see small success. That's a motivation. It keeps giving me a hope that there's a promise. There's something in the future. Like if I can keep on keeping on, I'll eventually get to wherever it is I dream of. So the motivation is the fact that if I fail, right, nobody would know. Nobody's expecting anything from me. I'm not from where you have expectations. You have to do it. Everybody's doing it. No, that's not where I came from. So, but if I succeed, then everybody would know. But if I don't do it because I'm afraid of failing, I mean, if I fail, nobody would care, right? So what I tell myself is, nobody's expecting anything. Let me just do it, right? And I keep, like I said, I keep encouraging myself. And one thing, again, that's always been my drive is that you cannot tell me what I cannot do. Nothing is impossible to me. When I had my first master's degrees, I had 2 master's degrees at the same time. I did them at the same time. And I was having a full-time job at that same period. The reason why I went for that wasn't because I was super smart or whatever, no. But because somebody told me, you can't do it. If you do it, then this is going to happen and all of that. And I said, you don't tell me what I can't do. In that case, I'm going to do the both of them at the same time. All right? And I never went to class for once. That's why it goes back to self-tutoring, right? So what I did was, I went to this campus, I told these students, because the masters were from 2 different universities. So I told these guys, hey, I'm from this school. I'm doing my master's with you guys, but I'm also doing my master's in this other school. I went to the other school, I did the same thing. So everybody thought I was very intelligent. So every weekend, they're always in my house for me to teach them because they thought I had learned in 2 schools at the same time, so I should be smart. No. When they come for me to teach them, that was where I get to learn from what they've been taught. So during exams, you see me running from one campus to another. Maybe if my exams clash the same day, I'm writing here in the same day at the same time, different courses. So my point is, I push myself. I try to always push myself. And then when you tell me I can't do something, and maybe you want to try tell me I can become the president of DBS.
Then you'll have
if you tell me that, then maybe in the next 2 years you'll see me.
You can't give us $1 million.
I should. Next year you should call me for it.
I think it's also important that you built up that skill from young, so you knew how to do that.
Yeah.
If you're a third year student, please don't drop out and just not go to class and try and figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a skill you kind of have to learn over time.
That's true.
You've also taken on so many projects. Would you like to speak about some of them? Because some of them are really impressive to me.
Yeah, so the most recent one I am currently working on is with the team in Rochester. So I got this grant with the then SFI, Science Foundation of Ireland. So we have this research collaboration we have with National Science Foundation in the United States. And we're working on the project at the moment where we try to build a human-computer interaction systems. It's majorly machine learning and AI. So what that project is trying to do is look at the interaction between human and a machine. So when I have a machine in front of me and I'm giving a set of instructions and it behaves in the way I'm trying to prompt it, what if I get tired or get distracted or slip off in the process? Can the machine be able to mimic what I would have said and act on my behalf, right? So we're trying to build what we call a data fusion between both humans and machines and try to see how that interaction can happen. Before that, I was also working on building a pipeline for data augmentation because one thing we've realized is that people do research, but sometimes they have challenges with accessing sufficient data. You have people collecting primary data and it's very expensive. And then you have people collecting data and it's inconsistent because people who provide those data might not be giving the right type of information or fact and stuff. So how can we have a pipeline whereby If I have limited data, for instance, I should be able to provide billions of variety of such data without having to go and collect them manually. Let's take, for instance, we want to measure the air quality of Dublin Business School. And we want to place sensors in every floor, but we don't have the money. We could place one sensor in the 5th floor, and it takes the air quality on the 5th floor and augments it to replicate what would have been collected with other floors, other sensors in other floors. So that's on that project I'm currently working on. We've made some progress. And so before then, recently, again, I also have this team. Most of them students, even in DBS, are part of that project. So what we're trying to build is a recommender system for health, is an IoT for health services. So what happens is, instead of going to the hospital, for instance, you will know this. In Ireland, for instance, it's hard to get medical services sometimes. You need the GP to give you a referral.
There's only 13 ambulances in the whole of Ireland.
Good. So how can everybody access health services in that situation? And there are other countries with similar such problems. So what do? We felt like maybe we can build a health management system whereby if I key in few details about how I feel, for instance, because when you go to see the doctor, that's what you do. You tell them how you feel. They look at your face, they take your temperature, and they tell you, this is wrong with you, this is what we are treating. Sometimes they are right, sometimes they're not entirely right. Sometimes they're emotional about even what they tell you. Okay, I don't like you so much, so you have this, and this is what you have. So how can we build a model whereby you should, if you put the very limited data about yourself or how you feel, it can recommend so many things for you. Number one, it can serve as a recommender system to tell you. First, it tells you everything. It gives you a summary of what you're going through, what is happening to you. It recommends what medication you should take. It probably tells you the nearest hospital to where you are in terms of mapping. So it recommends for you, this is the place you can go to and get this service. It tells you how long. For instance, we are trying to build something whereby if someone is going to have cancer in 10 years or probably have any form of terminal disease, it should be able to predict some strain. Okay. So it's a robust project. It's going to take a while, but we are hoping we can achieve it. And And
I think to anyone who's listening, that sounds so grand. And again, that's a mountain. It sounds like when you speak. But we spoke to other lecturers and we speak about their projects, and they say like sometimes they get involved like because of a bet. They get involved because they had a few drinks with their friends. For example, me and Paddy do a lot of projects, and it's just random ideas.
Yeah.
How do these ideas come across you, and how do you kind of set them in motion?
So most times I just, when I get to a place, I see a problem, I think of a solution. So when I think of a solution, sometimes I want to make sure my solution is robust.
Yeah.
In the past, I used to try to solve them alone, and I realized no one is an island. So lately, what I do is when I get this problem, I just think of the network I have and say, okay, I know this person has ever said this related to this and that, so I bring up those teams together. I tell them, this is your project. I'm just going to be here to see how it's come to fruition because I know how the end look like. You are the one to implement. Yeah. So every time we hold our meetings and we look at what we are building, I'm like, okay, I think we're almost there. We're almost there, and that's how we work. Okay. So I like to get people involved, and also I like to let people learn from each other. I could be good in programming. You are good in administration. You are good in project management. Let's come together and all learn from each other and build something. So yeah, that's how I get to work.
I think with all these projects, I think at this point you probably have more PhDs than I have brain cells. No. But with all these projects overlapping at the same time, how do you manage all that, and how do you manage to not have to put projects on the shelf and
also face burnout? I'm sure comes. Because burnout, I've got hit by burnout. I didn't think it was a real thing until it caught me one year, and it's very real. Yeah.
Okay, so what I do is when I start this project and I have like a member of the team and I see your commitment, I kind of like make you own the project. I'm leading the project, but I make sure I get somebody who kind of like understand the goal, the mission, so that even if I'm not 100% actively in that project again, it can still continue without me. All right. But that aside, I have a bad habit of working all the time. I don't have holidays. Like sometimes when I have conversations with friends and they're like, oh, I went for a vacation. I'm like, you did? How was that possible? So last year I was in different places in different countries. I went and people thought I was traveling for vacation. None of it was vacation. The only time I went for the vacation, I went with my laptop and I was in bed the whole time. I was in meetings, I was doing some work, and I finished the days, and I packed my stuff and came back, and I said, I'm never going for vacation again because it's a waste of time and waste of money. So most times, I'm always trying to keep tab with everything I'm doing. Yeah. If I could be checking this right now, I remember this has to be done, I switch to it, back and forth, and that's how I manage most of the projects.
Have you ever slept ever in your life at all? Or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
How do you
I sleep a lot.
unwind at the end of the day? How do you relax? Because sometimes, like, I'm involved in this project, I do other things, and I find it really hard to unwind sometimes.
Yeah.
I've tried a few different things, but I'm curious to see what you do.
Okay, so for my own self, I think I unwind from work with more work. There's always a laptop beside my bed. As soon as I wake up, the first thing I look for is my laptop. I'll panic if it's not there. Yeah, I will definitely panic if it's not there. So, but I think other ways to unwind is sometimes I take a walk in a park, right? And sometimes, very rare times, I can try to meet up with friends and go have a few drinks and probably chill somewhere and just say, gibberish or something. Yeah. But then other times, what do? I see movies. But rarely anyway. So I go to the cinema, I see a movie.
Once a year.
Yeah. and then there's this other thing. I do social media too. I go online, I just keep swiping and look at funny stuff and just
Go on
laugh.
podcasts?
Yeah, I go on podcasts and listen to people talk and stuff. So yeah, that's how. And sometimes I just take my time out and maybe just listen to music and scream and just dance alone in the house. That kind of like helped me to relax most times.
And do you have any advice for anyone watching that's kind of lost at their career? They don't know what to do next.
My advice would be everyone is lost. Just find your path. We're all going to get there. Because even those who seem to have gotten it, they just didn't tell you the whole story. Everybody's trying to get somewhere else. I could be here right now, and I'm trying to get somewhere. I'm just trying to figure out my way. So you're not alone. That's what I would say, number one. You're not alone. Number two, talk to somebody. There's always a mentor. There's always somebody who probably has been through what you've been through. They can simply guide your hands. If you go on this platform called Google Scholar, I don't know if you've done any research before. Now on Google Scholar, you will hear you walk on the shoulders of giants. That's the tagline on it. You don't have to do everything from the scratch. You could just simply say, I want to get from this point A to point Z, but I feel from point A to point Q is complex. You don't have to go through point A to point Q. Somebody has gone through all the rigor. Go and ask him how and go from point Q to point Z. It makes it faster. So talk to people who have been through what you've been through. Have a mentor, all right? Have somebody that inspire you, somebody who challenge you, who encourage you to do what you do and, what you want to do. Don't give up because there's no space for giving up. If you give up, who's going to do it? So don't give up. Keep trying, keep pushing, talk to somebody, and one day you'll find yourself being a mentor to somebody else too.
I think that's a good way to veer off to the end of the podcast. But
yeah.
before we end, is there anything you'd like to say or promote?
Okay. Well, I really don't know what I want to promote for now.
If there's nothing, then we can also put things in the description.
Okay.
So that's
there's nothing else I want to promote for now. Yeah.
And then we also have this tradition of every lecturer at the end leaves a question for the next lecturer.
Yeah.
And last time we had Connor Murphy on, and he left you a question. He said, "What's the best thing about working in DBS, and what's the worst thing about
Probably
working
the awards
in DBS?"
you keep winning.
So I think the best thing, of course, the awards. You get
the glory,
the glory. You get rewarded
the salary,
for hard work.
the glory.
Yeah, the salaries, and that's to be fair. Because somebody asked me, "Do you love your job?" I say I would do it for free. To be honest, like I could come to the office every day, 9 to 5. Of course, I don't do 9 to 5, right? But I could come here every day and teach. Sometimes I teach 8 hours in a day. Sometimes 10 hours, 30 minutes in a day. I could do it for free and go home. I'll be okay. Of course, but bills has to be paid, right? So one thing I like about DBS is that they reward effort. Your every hard work pays. Whether you get paid in salary. I've never known they used to give awards for lecturers. That's what you do for a living, right? And I started getting awards here, and it's mind-blowing. I look at it, and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. So that's one thing I like about DBS. All hard work has been rewarded. Yeah, but so the next question would be what I don't like.
You don't like the worst thing about working in DBS.
The worst thing about working in DBS, and this is now to the student side, is that the assessment processes are too, I would say, too easy in a way, right? Because I've been to some universities, both in the US, here in Ireland and other places, and I've seen really very intelligent people. And I'm like, we don't test our students enough to compete with these guys. Because in the end, they will have to go to schools they'll have to go to places like MasterCard, Facebook, Google to compete for a job position. We want to make sure we have ready people who are equally ready. I've had students that write exams and use ChatGPT. You just paste the question, copy it, and paste it back and submit. Now, that part kind of like discourages us, for instance, for me. So I can't put in all the efforts for the whole 12 weeks and expect that you learn something. Then the exam comes and you're showing me ChatGPT. I could have just given you in the first week and say, give me. All right. So that part, it's not like I don't like it. We are still figuring it out. And I hope that one day we get to find out a much sophisticated way whereby we get to test our students and then we get to see the result of our teaching in them. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And then do you have one question for the next lecturer?
Okay. What question will I?
It can be anything.
You can try and set them up.
It can be one of the... Yeah,
who didn't like the least?
Okay.
The worst staff member.
Who's your favorite colleague? Your least favorite colleague?
So what I would ask, the kind of question, I'm still trying to process which one would be. So what kind of questions have you had so far? So you've had mine is...
Yeah, we've had what makes you happy?
Okay.
What's your favorite thing about working at DBS? What's your least favorite thing?
Okay.
I like that one because there was a bit of jeopardy there. You could have said some, but you handled it.
So can I repeat the same? Can I repeat someone's question for the next person? I can't.
No, you have to make up your own.
Okay, so... wow, this is tricky.
I love how hard you think about it. It could be your favorite. What's your favorite breakfast?
Okay, so maybe I'm overthinking.
I feel like that's your job, so that's our fault for this.
Yeah, so let me just ask. So my question for the next person would be, what do you like the most about your career?